Recently, there is something that we can find in Marijoa that is not leaving my mind. The giant straw hat in a freezer. First, that in itself holds a lot of questions. But other than that, think about it. When was the last time we have seen a freezer in the One Piece world? Perhaps in the cruise ship? Actually, there is no electrical power on the ship. So a lot of theories actually suggest that the crew does not have a fridge or a freezer, but an ice box, which is a pre-modern version of a refrigerator where you just put a lot of ice into that box that has thermal isolation and it keeps things cold, and it needs to be equipped with system chain and lock so Luffy can touch it, and that's why Sanji is so strong, because he needs to fight Luffy all the time to prevent Luffy from starving the crews to death. But there is another place that I can think that had a freezer, and a real freezer, which was Gecko Moria's island. Both, Thriller Bark, because that's where ores was stored, or ore's body, right? And it's very interesting because it's the only two locations that we see that have freezer or the capacity to freeze and preserve something. And there is a connection here between Moria and Emu, because Moria was a Chichibukai, so he was a part of the government, and they both have like devilish shadow powers. They both can possess people in different ways. Yes, Moria can steal somebody's shadow and then possess a dead body with that shadow, and the personality and the powers of the shadow goes into the body. While Emu can do his demonification process where he reverses the subject and transforms it into a demon. But the thing is that I really want to focus here is the freezer and the ability to freeze things. Because why does Emu has a giant straw hat frozen in Marijuana? And is that the national treasure that Don Quixote Don Flamingo was talking about when he said that he had that national treasure and the op fruit, he could become the new king of the world? And I think I know the answer though, because like Emeth, the big robot in Egghead, and a very, very powerful haki stored from Joy Boy, I think the straw hat that we see in Marijoa is kind of the same thing. Not exactly, but I think it also some way, somehow, has powerful haki from its previous user. And freezing it makes sure that it cannot be activated, or at least wants to activate it needs to be really close, or they really to literally touch it because it's frozen. So it's harder to activate. But other than that, there is the point of how are they freezing these things? We know there is one person that can freeze anything, which is one of the Navy admirals, but other than that Logia power, there isn't really electricity, there is not really a way to freeze things. So how is Moria and Emu freezing things? Are they using some type of electrical power? Are they using some type of magic? Is Aokiji like going back to those locations and using his ice power? Maybe it was a previous ice Logia user that awakened this fruit, because we know that when you use the power of an awakened, most likely specifically elemental Logia fruit, it can affect its surroundings for a very, very long time. Like we see with Punk Hazard, where Akainu and Aokiji fought together with their awakened powers, and well, just take a look at it, and you can see the everlasting power of those two devil fruits. And another thing is that Ors was found already dead by Gecko Moria in the land of ice. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is the land of ice? Well, nobody really knows. That was literally the only mention of that location was when we learned about Ors and where Gecko Moria found him. And the thing is, Ors died there. So Ors was there, but he was found by Gecko Moria there as well. So Gecko Moria also went into the land of ice. So if we follow the theory that Emu, as the giant straw hat, frozen to avoid a potential usage of its haki, does that mean that in the land of ice, where ores was previously frozen as well, we can achieve the same? Can we reduce the power or literally limit the use of haki by using ice. That would bring a huge power level to Aokiji. But on the other hand, what was Gecko Moria doing there? Gecko Moria, it's a lazy bum. He just wants to make his shadow army of zombies so they fight for him, even though he's pretty strong himself, because back in the day, he'll be fighting to a standstill, or at least very close to it, with a young Kaido. Yes, Kaido wouldn't have his devil fruit power, but we're not sure if the Gecko Moria already had it as well. And speaking of fighting, if you remember in Marineford, Gecko Moria was almost assassinated by Don Flamingo. And we know that Doffy is crazy, but somebody higher up told him to get rid of Gecko Moria. But why? Why would the government just straight up try to kill a Chichibukai, somebody that is working for them, but on top of that, in secrecy? Because we all know that the Marines and the government, they don't care about pirates. They just scum of the face of the earth. And especially Chichibukai usually are pirates so strong that the Marines can handle with them. So come to my side, you get paid, you can do whatever you want if it's not that crazy, and you will the only thing that you really have to do is come to our aid when we need you. So if they wanted to kill Gecko Moria just because they don't like him or they despise him, they could just do it. They wouldn't need to hide it because it wouldn't be illegal, and it will be sociable acceptable to just get rid of a pirate, because most people don't like pirates, because most pirates are not like Luffy. Most pirates are like Kaido or the Flamingo or even Bartolomeo, the user of the barrier fruit, which he is an ally to Luffy. You have to remember that he was doing human kebabs. He was doing human skewering before being an ally to Luffy. And does that raise any mortal doubts about Luffy? Because he allowed somebody that was literally impaling people alive into his, not crew, but fleet. So we have to remember that nobody really likes pirates. And the people that like Luffy, they still don't like other pirates. The people that like Whitebeard because he was protecting their land, they don't like other pirates, right? So killing Moria wouldn't be, or publicly, I mean, would be okay. That wouldn't be a problem at all. So why doing it in secret? I think there is a connection bigger than it seems at first glance. Because first, shadow power from Moria, demon power from Im. Then, Imo as a freezer, Moria as a freezer. And then, I think it's not about Moria, but about the fruit. I think it's about the shadow fruit. Because when somebody that has a devil fruit power dies, the fruit will spawn somewhere else. So, if you kill somebody publicly, and everybody knows that that person had the shadow fruit, everybody now can go look for the fruit. So first you kill Moria in secret so that nobody knows that Moria died. So nobody's looking for the fruit. So the government has a way easier time to get the fruit. And why would be that fruit so important to the government? I think there is a connection between Imu's power and the shadow fruit. Maybe it's also a reason why Blackbeard took Moria hostage and didn't unalive him, because he knew that will give the opportunity for the government to get his hands on the fruit of Moria. Like I said before, the connection between Imu's devilish powers and Moria's shadow fruit might go deeper than we think. Then there is Blackbeard that kidnapped Moria, and he has the dark fruit. So demon, shadow, dark, triple menace, and there is the theory of Blackbeard having three souls, three hearts, but the number three come into a question here. So I think the connection is clear between shadow fruit, dark fruit, and Emu's power, but we don't really know what that connection is and who is involved, and to what length will we see that have an effect in the world and in the final saga of the story that we are currently going through. That reminded me of another thing. If you think about it, the government had the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. The government also had the Mera Mera no Mi, Ace's fruit, the Fire fruit. It was Don Flamingo that used it as a prize to attract Luffy, basically, and other people that will be interested in the fruit to then take care of them. And also, they are trying, according to my theory, to get their hands on the shadow fruit again. So does that mean that the government knows how to get fruits, they know where they spawn, they know where to locate it. Maybe there is a fruit that allows you to locate fruit. Maybe you can do something with Aki. Maybe Emu's demon powers, devil power, devil fruit have something to do with that. That's for another video. My point is that at first, they were like, oh, Moria, he can fight with Kaido. He's strong. Oh, he got his hands on the Shadow fruit. Sure, let him use it. We're gonna get him on our side, and we can use him. We can use his Shadow fruit because we can use him. But then he became complacent. He became weak. And after he lost to Luffy, which didn't had yet awakened his fruit, he's like, bro, you too weak, we can't trust you anymore. You are a liability. So we're gonna kill you, we're gonna unalive you, so we then can spawn the fruit and give it to somebody that we can trust. So Moria and the Shadow Fruit, Moria and the Freezer, Moria and the Land of Ice. What is all that about? To be honest, we don't have enough answers. There is not enough in the chapters or even any theories going around that go very, very deep. But I'm very sure there is a connection. Why would they try to kill Moria in secret if they didn't have something connected, if there was no plan? And especially they asked Don Flamingo, which is also a celestial dragon, and he knows about the national treasure. So that means they could have asked any other Chichibukai to do so. Maybe Don Flamingo will be the craziest one and he will be the one accepting it easier to analyze somebody, but that is another line in this connection, in this conspiracy theory, right? They asked a ex or still current celestial dragon to do that dirty work. So, what is the point here? What is the connection? Is I think that Emu's powers are directly connected with the shadow powers of Moria. In some way, somehow, the shadow powers of Moria can be very useful to Emu or even a part of Emu's power. Because when we see for the first time the shapes of Emu and the Gurosei, they are shown in shadows. Yes, that could be just Oda doing great foreshadowing and not revealing everything in front of us. But Oda also knows how to show things that don't. He also knows how to show things in a way that direct us to one spot while he's trying to show another spot. So he might was like, okay, I'm not showing you this, so they look like shadows, but they could literally be just shadows, or the, maybe the shadow fruit is a way to connect to the devil realm. Maybe the shadow fruit is a way to mediate between all the users of the abyss. Maybe the shadow fruit is a power of the abyss, is a fruit, literally one of the first fruits that came from the power of the abyss. And then on a completely separate note, but I have to mention it, we have also the fruit of Blackbeard, the literally fruit of darkness. And when we think about darkness and shadow, they're very similar, right? But I didn't find any connection between Blackbeard and the Freezers and the Land of Ice and Emu, right? We know that Blackbeard wants to become a king or be a part of the world government, but that's for another video. So we have a lot of those connections, but I think that with the most recent chapters, we learned about the biggest connection between Moria and Emu. So think about it. Who was frozen in Moria's freezer? Ors. Who was Ors? Ors was a gigantic giant. Yes, he was a giant among giants. But not only that, he was an ancient giant. And he had horns, just like Harold, father of Loki, father of Hyaridin. Sorry for my pronunciation, right? And if somebody told you that Ors was a demon, you'd be like, yeah, sure, he's a demon. Yeah, he's green. He looks like an ogre. He's destructive. He's wild. He has huge horns. Totally. And we now learn that Emu wants to enslave the giants because Emu believes that the giants are a big part of his plan to, I don't know, conquer the world, reconquer the world, prevent the new dawn. We don't really know what is the plan of Emu because he's already the owner of the world. He's already the king of the world. So his plan is more about maintaining that power or even conquer another planet. We know about space. I have a big theory. I'll talk about that in another video, which is basically the Earth will become a ship, and then everybody will ride the ship to go from galaxy to galaxy. That's a crazy theory. That's totally out there. We'll talk about that later. But the theory basically is about Earth becoming a ship, and then everybody comes together as the world comes into one piece, into a world of peace. Then everybody goes sailing around through space from galaxy to galaxy, having wonderful adventures just like the start of One Piece. But that's for another video. The theory is really out there, right? But Ors not only is an ancient giant, not only is he a giant, of course, so he will be a part of Emu's plan because he's a giant and he was one of the most powerful giants. Also, because he was more violent and more animalistic, it would be easier for Emu to control him with Domi Reversi, and he was known as the continent puller. Why is that relevant? Because there are many theories, some with a lot of credit, that the red line and the way that the islands of the One Piece world work and all the history and the lore behind them, most people agree that Ors might actually be the one that created the red line. Perhaps there was somebody with the Earth fruit and they could just make mountains out of nowhere, but where are they right now? Where is the fruit? Why are they not doing anything right now? And the continent puller, think about it. The One Piece world does not have continents, right? It has islands and the red line. So, continent puller? How so? What continents was he pulling? And he literally did that. That's why he got that name. He pulled continents, but where did he pull them from? Underwater? Maybe out of water? Maybe after Emu floods the world again, he needs somebody strong enough to bring some land back up. I don't know, but it's all connected. The continent puller, red line, giants, final piece of Emu, the end of ice, ice being able to stop Aki potentially. And the final question, what was Moria doing in the land of ice? Was he there by himself? Was he sent on the mission? Was he looking for? Was he looking for a way to freeze his bodies? Because he's full of bodies, he's full of powerful bodies, even from God's Valley. Keep that in mind. That is a very important theory as well. But the point is, it's too many connections to be ignored, but also the connections are not clear to really say, haha, that's that. Morio was doing this, Morio was doing that, yada, yada, yada. So a lot of things are still in the air, but I think we cannot ignore the connections between Moria and Emu, between the shadow power and the devil power, between they are the only characters that we know they have freezers. They are both about transforming people into their army, and the connection between Ors, between the giants, between Emu wanting to have the giants on his side. We also have to remember that the Land of Ice killed Ors, and the Land of Ice was so cold that the the weather was able to corrode one gigantic arm of ores. So I think the Land of Ice might be a relevant location in the world piece, in the One Piece history, or it might just be, you know, a way to justify why Or's body was still there. But imagine if it was from the Land of Ice where Emo and Moria learn how to freeze stuff. Because so far, the only reference to electricity is Enel. And Enel is on the moon. I mean, he was on the moon. We don't know what Enel is doing right now. So there is no way for Emu or Moria to actually have freezers like we do in our world. There must be another way, a power, something that freezes them, that can they can use to freeze stuff, because we never seen any freezers no more. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. What is the connection between Moria? Where do they get those freezers? How do they use them? And was Ors receiving Luffy's shadow a hint, a foreshadowing to Emu now changing the giants to his side? doing something with Luffy as well? Oh, something just clicked in my mind. You remember how Luffy became Shadow Luffy? Okay, another connection. So Luffy became Shadow Luffy. Luffy became Shadow Luffy in Thriller Bark. And who gave him the shadows? Or who initiated that process? Lola. And Lola is daughter of Big Mom. Big Mom has something to do with souls, right? Detaching souls, absorbing souls, taking lifespan away. And Imu does just the same with his Domi Reversi or just by giving powers to somebody else. Then there are a lot of theories coming up that say that Luffy's sixth gear will be when he kind of absorbs the power of Imu and he joins that with fifth gear. The hints are there. Luffy loses his shadow to Oars. Oars, being a giant, has the power now of the Gomu Gomu no Mi, the Hito Hito fruit. So for a short time, Oars became Nika, not awakened, but the potential to be Nika, right? So can we see a cycle where Luffy will kind of lose some part of his power, or he'll lose a part of his personality, just to then receive a bunch of shadows to receive a shadowy demonic power that makes him stronger? And I don't know why, I just thought about when Luffy became Shadow Luffy, he had a sword, right? And then we saw Luffy with swords in Wano. We see Nika having a sword. We see the giant sword in Elbaf. So there are no connections here between Thriller Bark and Elbaf right now, right? Shadow Luffy, Emu, Moria, Freezers. Why did Luffy have a sword when he was Shadow Luffy? Why does Nika has a sword and a shield? Like, once again, there are a lot of connections, but not enough answers. So maybe we'll do some more digging, and you can help me out using the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and expect more videos from One Piece in the recent future. See you next time.